Hello world, this is Najee Coach, and this episode is on the Najee Hardcore Humanist. This especially goes out to my crew of heroic Najee. Together we are going to make a new, better world. To do this, we are going to need all our powers, and this will definitely include our spirit forms. The Hardcore Humanist will definitely be called upon as we go into the thick of things. First, we'll just briefly talk about the technical aspects, and then we'll move on. The Hardcore Humanist for the Najee is strongly associated with the use of the offside modulation power of Xi. That mathematically has the relationships, as we've talked about in synomny and peak pathways and so forth, with the other powers, all 8 actually, but we'll focus right now on the conscious powers. So the Hardcore Humanist, being associated strongly with Xi, is going to have that hierarchical position. One-way walker, then the natural law teacher, and then Hardcore Humanist. And then after that is the frenzied fanatic underneath Hardcore Humanist. So there is a relationship of the Hardcore Humanist as Xi to help calibrate the visions. It also, there's a lot more to it than this, but just real briefly, calibrate the visions. It also helps to calibrate the interpersonal interactions and the code of conduct, feasibility things, and it also can be paired with the visceral activity, action scenes and whatnot. So the Hardcore Humanist combines in many different ways, but just to give a little highlight there in a mathematical sense, it actually links up with the other 3, and it can go with any of them, all of them, etc. And it links up with your other and so forth, her Jai, and so on and so forth. But just for right now, we'll talk about like our end of the storyline of what role the Hardcore Humanist plays. So that's the basic math of it. Now we'll get to what will be the more experiential way of which is the better way, the real way. You have to experience spirit forms and do them properly. And the best way to talk about them to help access that experience is in story. Spirit forms are much better understood in story, although you want that, of course, to be able to line up through the whole SS index, which pod layer theory provides. But now we've got the math, now we're going to talk about character. Before I just start jumping around with some notes I made, which is the next thing I like to do it, we'll start with the overview, which is how Humanist likes to do things. So I guess the 2 main things to focus on is probably, to help orient you before we jump around, would be the fact that the Hardcore Humanist, its innate reason for being and the way it operates, most Najee are not super familiar with, although the Hardcore Humanist is generally well developed as far as energetic musculature. But that doesn't mean that it's healthy. It doesn't mean that the Najee has a good relationship with it, or that it has a good relationship with the other members of the pod power spirit forms, the one-way walker, natural teacher, frenzy fanatic. It can be isolated, it can be connected only with the modulator, it can only be connected with momentum in ways that are suppressive. So there's basic, long story short, the Hardcore Humanist is generally overdeveloped in Najee in incorrect ways. That's extremely common. So I don't want to spend the time filming this on that. I want to talk about the positive aspect, but it is worth noting that the Hardcore Humanist is actually a spirit form that most Najee are very, very familiar with. And before we talk a little bit about how that can be an issue, we did that with the other ones as well, but with the Hardcore Humanist, it's important that we talk about how it is supposed to be used, just in large conceptual ways, which is that it is hardcore about humanistic interests. So this is important because as the Hardcore Humanist steps in to take an active role in the heroic storyline, it has a multitude of, like all Najee stuff, there's a lot of facets to it, and a lot of the facets are very different. And then third, a lot of Najee seem to actually turn on like Fozen aspects, disassociation aspects, and that's actually part of the Hardcore Humanist. It is part of the pantheon of abilities it provides, but it provides a whole bunch of them that really do really cool stuff and are integral to combining the rest of the spirit forms, the rest of the synamnia. So in general terms of character, the Hardcore Humanist is about protection. Protection of momentum and and this is a little more advanced, but it is definitely there as well. It's the energetic pathway it's there to protect the other. So the Zai of a Naiji, the hardcore humanist, let's talk in that terms, the hardcore humanist, it's hardcore because there's lots of stuff it has to field, to deflect, to be aware of, to have suspension system on, to be able to basically deal with for the Najez agenda. So basically the hardcore humanist is like this logical liege person, you know, with complete and absolute fidelity and faithfulness and desire to protect and uphold, to shield, to give you everything that you need to get that done. Okay, this is important. It's so devoted to doing that if you, the Naiji, myself, a Naiji, doesn't play correctly, the master at arms will kind of start telling the prince what to do. And that happens a lot with Naiji. That's extremely, extremely common in a variety of ways. It doesn't always happen the same way. The way it tries to chain up, you know, the prince or princess, the wizard, the dragon. It's supposed to actually help train the dragon. It's supposed to help give the dragon armor. It's supposed to help basically take you from your general appetites and initial wishes and give you the hard, steely lessons you need in order to be strong enough as a hero to get the job done. Because there will be some stressful things, there will be some tricky, intricate, confusing things, and you'll need to know what the 4951 is and where to stand. Okay, most Naiji right now, unfortunately, don't really know how their peak pathway works, so generally, they're kind of just freeballing it. And they're allowing the urges that are currently coming on them as part of the peak pathway and just to happen, and then try to control it, but they don't know what it is. They mainly just try to control it, and then the environment also hits it, and you react, HSP, and the Zai hardcore humanist steps in front of the dragon wizard, a term I use actually in March Manifesto. I use it now. It's prime. It's non-gendered. It basically means top shelf. So basically, male or female, a dragon wizard prime. The hardcore humanist basically, it wants to actually have a dragon wizard prime that's fully knowing what it's about, has good code of conduct, knows how to flex both ways, those kinds of things, and then it is there to basically be like your squire. That's the actual role of the hardcore humanist. That squire role can really, like, handler? I mean, it's better than squire because it's kind of knight. So kind of like a dragon wizard handler. That's its role, and it loves its role. It loves you. And it's that love that actually can throw things off sometimes if the dragon wizard prime is playing like a punk. Okay, if you're playing like a punk, the hardcore humanist will go from just being like your handler, you know, there to help you with your weapons training and to help line things up and to give you rails for your flight patterns, to set you up in nice ascension runway momentum maneuvers. I mean, it basically runs you through maneuvers and helps you get through things you hadn't planned for by just, you know, tactical, visceral, free-forming. So that's a good look at too, like you're a dragon, so you're kind of like a ship. Suspension system. The hardcore humanist is there to actually keep you, the ship, going forward, handling suspension issues, and shielding on impacts. Okay, so that should kind of give you the general, grand, awesome way of the hardcore humanist and how it relates to our story. Now, that handler, real quick, it can do other things. For example, in extreme circumstances, but extreme circumstances for most Naiji is very common because, well, one, being wired the way we are, two, you don't know how to fly it, three, the world doesn't know how to deal with you. Okay, so for that reason, that's why Naiji, for example, misread the most. They misread the most because it's very easy to have your storyline go dramatically in an extreme direction, and next thing you know, that's your life, and then you define yourself that way. And this usually happens really, really early. So Hardcore Humanist steps in early as things happen to the Dragon Wizard. When it's a Dragon Wizard puppy, it's there to help you. It's there to keep you safe from people. It's there to guard your emotions. Okay, but if you become a danger to yourself, or if the environment becomes so dangerous that you are not able to handle it, the Hardcore Humanist, as your modulator, as one of your modulators, is designed to know when the dragon needs to rest, when the dragon has found a safe place to rest for the evening, when the dragon's shields can take the impact that's incoming, when the dragon's suspension in flight is not wobbly. There's not, whether or not it's going to clear where it's going to crash. So it monitors all this stuff for us in a real-time, free-form way. But very, very good, extremely balanced, very good at that. So it's supposed to balance forward movement. Balance forward movement. But if the forward movement will start with the outside world. The outside world is really becoming a problem. The Hardcore Humanist innately will pause for a second and see if the Dragon Wizard isn't going to do something to address it. But it's there to save you. So if there's any issues. So if you don't make those energetic moves with Nai and Ji to affect the environment in a way that's going to make danger stop being there, the Hardcore Humanist will step in. It will lock your body down. It'll guard your face. It will protect things in your speech. It'll almost make it very difficult for you to keep speaking like you feel in danger and then words don't flow. And that comes back to the Dragon Wizard again. That's a combination of you don't know what you're doing, or the Hardcore Humanist doesn't know what they're doing because you didn't train them right. They're your handler. You're supposed to train them how to handle you. I mean, they're there. The Hardcore Humanist is there to give that equilibrium, to give that coolness, to give that tacticalness. But it's not in charge of the story. It doesn't know that. You do. So if you don't tell it what it's supposed to do, it's just going to go as best it can based on what you're doing at that moment and try and help you. So this can go into faux zen, dissociation. It can go into inertia, like you can literally feel like you can't move your body, like you can't get out of the chair, out of bed or something. It'll do these things like, sort of like when you get sick. If you get sick and you're not acting in a way that will help the sickness get better, your body will just, okay, you need a timeout. It'll just put you down. It'll put you down to allow the body to do the vital processes that need to be done. And so the Hardcore Humanist is designed to help you out. But if it sees that protocols of its being are being violated, it will step in. So it's not supposed to let the Dragon Wizard get hurt. Period. That's its job. So it will survey the environment. It'll notice the way people are talking. It'll splice everything they're doing and break down the principles, break down the tactics, what's going on there. And it will make sure that if something is like hurting you, next thing you know, you'll ow, 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 ow. Okay, you need to convert that ow, ow, ow into a spell. Or, and this gets into the cool things Hardcore Humanists can do, tell the Hardcore Humanist that this is pain that we're going to process and use in a higher ritual later. But if you don't do these things on your side, the directive side, the Hardcore Humanist is sort of like, my boss is in trouble, and it's just going to shield you. It'll pick whatever is the easiest conduit, depending on what kind of life you've led. If you have physical skills, verbal skills, dissociation skills, whatever it is, academic skills, it'll just pick those avenues and start calibrating you to be more efficient. Yeah, two things it'll do. Defensively, if you're getting hit, it'll just take whatever it can and start doing its best job. This is very important. So The hardcore humanist, it's ironically, it's overdeveloped in a lot of ways, just make you think like maybe a lot of Naiji actually have like this really cool relationship. No, they actually have turned their hardcore humanists into a off-kilter juggernaut. And the upside is, if you can, if you do the work. If you do the work to reclaim your hardcore humanist, then when it gets its heart back, it will be so fucking strong. So that's the upside. That's always what happens when you get possessed by something or you get hung up. If you're able to get over it eventually, then you're really strong for having done it. You know, whatever doesn't kill you or stop you makes you stronger. That's definitely true. But let's now go with the positive, which is when it's doing its job correctly, it's basically looking for how to help the Dragon Wizard do what it's doing. That's its primary reason for being. It wants to know if... One thing I think that a lot of people ask about, and this is interesting about having like an overdeveloped in a wrong way hardcore humanist, you won't get this ability. And it's one of the best abilities of hardcore humanists. Rapid cycling. The hardcore humanist, Zai, one of its main abilities is it can toggle between your other powers, your other spirit forms, your other modes. Like, you know what we're talking modes? Ghostwalker mode, Skinwalker mode, you know, Frenzy. That's something it's lined up also with your Warp Frenzy. Pretty much everything that you do, shapeshifting, when you have the hardcore humanist who understands what you want to do, it gives you impeccable timing and control. So when the hardcore humanist is in proper heroic hierarchy, it acts very much like, and you'll see this, the Vaiji also have this because their Zai is in the same location, it's like a surgeon or a wizard doing these really high level spells, and as they do so, the timing of the incantations, of the various things you're doing with these incredible energies becomes very, very important. And the hardcore humanist is designed to be like that handler. Scalpel. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing, you know, like, okay, frog legs. That, whatever it is you need, the hardcore humanist is there to, like we talk about handling you, its main thing is to hand you things. For example, it actually can chain up the dragon if the dragon is like causing itself self-harm or massive collateral damage, and it doesn't know why it's doing that. If you tell it why it's doing it, the hardcore humanist will go along if it's necessary. But if it just thinks you're flailing, it'll kind of chain you up. That's sort of like the emergency part of it. The way it's supposed to be done is sort of like a natural flow, is you go up in dragon flights and it's like your spotter. You kind of go way up in the air and you need like this sort of beacon. It's like a shiny, steely beacon that tells you where to come back to. It often will be like this golden, I guess, steel, but it's this, yeah, this silver lining, this silver thread of where you're supposed to go. Like you say, I have this vision and I want this to happen with it. And then it'll calibrate there. That is the perfect trajectory. Yeah, that's the main thing it does. It basically listens to what you're trying to pull off, your spell, your flight, your ritual, your monologue, whatever it is, like, okay. And then it'll start going crazy with the principles of how to make that the most optimized thing ever. One thing you'll notice is that the Zai of a Naiji, the hardcore humanist, is not, I would say, unemotional or at calm. It's in a groove. That's a very important. The hardcore humanist job is mainly when you're on missions. As soon as it figures out what it is that you're trying to pull off, it wants to make that a smooth mission. I mean, just really round out any hard edges, cut the most efficient path, know all the principles in play, and just bonus stack the shiz out of them. Basically, that's what it knows. Once it knows, That's the story. It kind of starts taking the story and making it a game. Story, game. Naiji tend to think this way, in story and in game. And the game is based on the story. That's very, very important. Your hardcore humanist will get extremely powerful in a very good way the more aware it is of the story you're trying to do. For example, let's say you're talking to, or in a situation where there's a lot of static back and forth, and you need to do a certain action, perhaps to save someone, to do something that would be beneficial to the situation, but it's going to get a bit uncomfortable. Okay, when that discomfort comes in, your hardcore humanist, it's basically like the most awesome protection grid ever. I mean, it's amazing what it can do. So if you don't tell it like something specific, like we're going to go through the eye of the storm, if it doesn't know that, it just knows that static's coming in and it'll attempt to stop static. Yeah, it's really good at stopping static. And it will do it the most efficient way based on the story you tell it that we're in. If not, it goes with there's no story right now, so default. And that will depend on what kind of life you live. But all Naiji should know what I'm talking about is that when you get nervous and you don't do some of the nervousness, or at least say to your psyche what's going on, that your hardcore humanist will kind of just pick an auto defense mechanism. Zai has a ton of auto defense mechanisms. Your hardcore humanist is just like a kung fu uber black belt badass at defensive mechanisms. The Jez Hunters, hardcore humanists, and they have a version of their own, but having that position, it is extremely good at going into extreme situations with extreme static and giving you what you need to do. That's kind of what it's built for. You build up a worldview that makes a tremendous amount of pressure, and then you must release this pressure, but you need to do it within a code of conduct that flexes between butter and baleful. That's got a feel to it. Your Zai is that feel. It will come in and just do all these things. I guess I should jump into some already, but we talked about, for example, the way it does things on auto. Here's one I think that is important to note, which I call the auto drop and the death grip. They're two different powers that the hardcore humanist has, and they are very, very different but very related. And this is why they can be so confusing, is because if it's operating without a good connection to the momentum, to the one-way walker and the natural law teacher, it will be going off of a auto storyline. There's a storyline that is just there as part of your model, and until you update it with simulator sessions, remodels, talking to your other, blah, 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 if you're not doing that, it just sort of has, you kind of have a stagnant storyline. And that stagnant story is what the hardcore humanist is going off of. It's doing, this is key, it's doing its job beautifully, but it can only do its awesome bonus stacking modifiers off of the storyline script it's being given. Yeah, it's really good at working a script, but first it has to know the story. So, death grip, auto drop. Because of the tremendous pressures that get built up being an IG, being a Jez Hunter, there's very much this sort of like personal weaponization, and or if not weaponized, launch ready. You're basically building up for a launch of some sort, and the Zai decides whether or not it's time or not. Also, sometimes the goal is to push something out, other times is to pull something in. So based on which one that is, being an IG, your hardcore humanist is designed, you've seen this in movies and shit, like holding on to something even after you're dead. Both Jez Hunters are really good at that. When we talk fanatic stuff, that's the Jez Hunter land. And Naiji being one of them, Deathlock is one of them. You basically like, I need to have my hand, the steering wheel needs to be like this. No matter what happens in this fucking storm, I don't care what comes over the horizon, I don't care what I get hit with, lash me to the, right, that kind of stuff. Tie me to the wheel. I'm keeping it exactly where it needs to be. That kind of thing, that's the death lock. I'm not letting it go. Don't drop the baby. You know what I mean? That kind of like metaphor motif you see in a lot of movies. Yeah, Naiji are big in that. You know what I mean? Like, they'll be kung fu and get stabbed and whatnot, but the other hand, do not drop the baby. Okay, so the death lock is sort of like, do not let go of this no matter what. And this is different than, say, like, of a Zai momentum mojo. For us, there's always going to be the fact that we're going forward into stressors. I mean, that's just the way it works. So we're going forward into static, and we need to keep the vision going. We need to enact it, and as we do that, one of the things that will come up, I talk about shields. There's shields, there's numbing, there's shifting into modes, but a big one is do not let go of the important things. Let everything else go, but do not let go of the important stuff. This combined with the detachment of the Nai lets Naiji pull off some incredible things. They'll detach from everything else except for what they must not let go of. And on that, they hold on even after they're dead. They just do not let go of that. And that's really, really, really impressive. So it's important to know your hardcore humanist has some fucking amazing powers. And they're designed to deal with, to handle a dragon wizard. So you really want to know how to use the hardcore humanist because it's not natively as, you know, chill as it would be on a momentum side. Because you actually have like high-tempered momentum powers, your hardcore humanist is designed to be the handler of a Truthfire dragon. So that's it has a lot of dragon handling, dragon shielding, dragon bonus stacking. Yeah, I mean, when you think of hardcore humanist, I mean, think of like the most awesome helper a wizard could ever have. The most awesome helper, I mean, other than your other, of course, but I'm talking like consciously. Like, it's Xi and V, but it's like of all the visceral, tactical requirements of getting into flight, of casting spells, of doing rituals. For this reason, the hardcore humanist abilities tend to be very boom, 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 like they're extreme when they come on, and they come on quick, and they turn quick. This happens a lot more when you see like mojos that are G mojos because their Xi is not momentum. So it's mainly there to be like, doo, doo, like just toggle modes. Hardcore humanist works for a living. It has a lot of energy it always has to handle, and it's never going to get equilibrium. All it can do is like, okay, master, please, could you wear the armor? You know, like basically it's got an impetuous prime dragon wizard that's going to go on adventures and such, get in danger, saving the world and whatnot, and it's just got to do the best it can to keep its master in one piece. Auto drop. This is something else. It can be two ways the auto drop can come up. One is that if certain things become problematic to how much you're carrying, like encumbrance, then the hardcore humanist, part of what it does is it's like my master must keep going. The story caravan must keep going. So if things get hung up, it'll ask the master in the ways that it can. A lot of times, Naiji don't know how to interact between their pot powers. So it'll ask the master, like, what are we supposed to do about this? If the master doesn't figure something out within an amount of time before the next loss occurs, the hardcore humanist is like, okay, well, we're going to have to cut that off. We're going to have to drop that. It'll just drop people, relationships, things, locations. It'll just drop it as irrelevant. Well, or collateral damage. It's unfortunate, and this is important. It does try to hold on to everything that you're saying, but if you're making plans that will not hold, its job is as things start to fall apart, it's not supposed to let the whole ship fall apart. It's not supposed to let the dragon fall out of the air. It's not supposed to let the wizard get taken over by the magic storm energies. So if it looks like that's what's supposed to happen, it's just going to start hitting things, trying to actually figure out what principle it can enact to hit a protocol of some kind of thing that'll make this better. This can confuse Naiji because they can find themselves suddenly getting cold. They find they lose memories. Things are just pulled from them, like a card just got pulled. They'll find motivation to do certain things just get pulled. For example, if you're actually trying to do more than you're actually able to do, it will actually start pulling the cards of some of them that seem less important so that you can actually get some things done. Anytime it notes with its logic that my master has used some flawed logic here, it will attempt to alert you, but if you're unaware or don't heed it or don't communicate well, it'll just start doing stuff to try to keep you from doing too much damage to yourself and others. On the other hand, it can actually be very much wanting to do damage. This is important. This is not a bad thing, this is just the way Naiji work, and also the Vaiji, is there's a tremendous buildup of pressure from the worldview, but heroic code of conduct often means that the energy that first happened when maybe the occurrence first happened or the thought first happened, it's not the right time or you don't know what to do with it yet. So your code of conduct says we need to hold that. Now this is key. Some Naiji actually may think that they have, I don't know, chilled it out. That's not how it works. Having the hardcore humanist in the offside position means that no, every time you give launch fuel, weapon fuel, bomb fuel, volcano fuel, you can call it whatever you want, but it is going to be highly driven fuel regarding humans, yourself, others. So when that happens, there'll be an attempt to like, not now, maybe later. The hardcore humanist just comes in kind of like you were throwing clothes on the floor and going, okay, and it starts picking up your clothes, your weapons, your dragon droppings, and does appropriate things with them. Appropriate to how much instruction you've given. How much instruction you've given the hardcore humanist, that's how well it'll calibrate. It'll bonus stack better than anything, but only what you tell it to do. So, one of the things is, if you give it these tremendous energies, two things can happen. One is that you may say a release code and you didn't know it. Or it can just happen because the holding containment units that the hardcore humanist is in charge of for you have become overflown. And it's trying to tell you that there's like, you know, an over buildup in containment unit, whatever, and you're not doing anything about it. You're just saying suppress more, and it's trying to tell you, I don't think we can suppress this anymore. This is something too, because a lot of times Naiji will ask for that from the hardcore humanist, and the hardcore humanist has incredible suppression powers. So it'll even try as best it can, but here's something that's very dangerous. You're basically compacting explosive energy. So at some point you have to release it and do something with it. If not, what you've done is you've just compacted it extra powerful. And as I said, one of two things will happen. First is it'll start getting like twitchy. Well, anyway, if something tripped it without you understanding it, your hardcore humanist will actually just release those energies, these dragon energies that have built up. It's got a whole like zoo containment center for it, but it can only do so much. I mean, it is only offside power. Our creatures are very strong. We're dragon wizard primes. So it does as best it can, but really they need to be let out, especially if they've been caged. These various energies get built up, and these storyline arcs that became too volatile, you're like, put that somewhere. Okay, but it doesn't go away. It goes to these various cages or zoo facilities. These zoo facilities can become very beautiful and wonderful with, you know, all kinds of dragon, they're still forming. They're still a little bit monstrous. They're kind of forming. The Zai can, if it has a good relationship, the hardcore humanist can be a great groundskeeper for all your ideas and passions that are still forming. Okay, so it's great at that. But what happens is if it becomes overpopulated, you know, kind of like a prison, it gets overpopulated in there. There's too many momentum creatures that have been created with wills of their own that the hardcore humanist is trying to wrangle. I mean, at some point, you have to train those creatures and bring them into the momentum like artistic troop army. If you don't do that, they just start, you know, as you probably know, somewhat being Naiji, they start just running around causing havoc in here. And then you send your hardcore humanist in, it does, it throws its nets on them, it lassos them, takes them over. But that can never make up for the fact that you are a volcanic, you know, dragon maker. You're going to keep spewing out more dragon stuff all the time. And so the hardcore humanist is never going to be able to keep up in that way. If it comes to, I've got creatures, let's train them, Let's see if they grow into something cool. It's great at that, and it'll help you train this massive. That's why both Jess hunters are really good at actually building empires in different ways. But if you look at the data, Jess hunters are really, really good at that. And one of the things is you have a lot of interpersonal related things going on that are in various stages of development, and those get balanced by the hardcore humanist. That spirit form keeps them all balanced as they either grow into something more healthy, or they get get combined into something else, and it's really good at actually facilitating with that. But it can never be to where it's in charge of the psyche, which is kind of what a lot of Naiji do. They kind of just say, fuck this. They throw the keys at the hardcore human and say, do what you can, I'm out of here. You know, wizard out. Okay, you can't do that. Hardcore humans is like, dude, shit. Okay, so it's very important, because I often talk about people being, Zai'd up or Fozen, dissociated, yada, yada, yada. And it may sound like negatives if Zai is bad. No, Zai is wonderful. This is actually just user error on the hero's part, because the hardcore humanist is designed to fit in awesome on your various, heroic adventures, and pretty much when you need various tools or whatever, it's there for you. When you need to jump out of something and land on your feet, it's there for you. So it's the suspension system of your story. Your story actually wouldn't be able to go forward if you didn't have that. It's all about your story going forward. So on the auto drop mention, it can just be because you're taking damage, it'll start dropping stuff, or either you're taking damage or you're falling out of the air. If one of those things start happening, it'll start just cutting off encumbrance. The other thing is that if there's something in front of you that's basically a demon, a lot of the creatures that Naiji have are designed to come out and build things or break things that are apex. Both Jez hunters have a lot of abilities that are designed to put something into place or to take something out of place that is apex as far as humans are concerned. A lot of their storylines involves doing that. So the Zai, hardcore humanist, is basically saying, excuse me, master, is this the time we're supposed to release the green dragon? It wants to know if that's what you're supposed to be doing. So it'll kind of like always be there on your shoulder, and it may feel like a weird twitchiness that comes over you, and then you tell them to numb it. And that's funny, because they're both coming from the hardcore humanist. The hardcore humanists are like, excuse me, sir, but this seems to be like an opportunity for the Truth Javelin 24. And you're like, no, we're not in a fight. Truth's not in the line here. I'm not into that. Whatever. And it's like, oh, okay. And it tries to recalibrate based on what you're telling it. Let's jump around now with just some of the really cool things the hardcore humanist can do for you. Survival. The hardcore humanist is really good at helping you survive in making better plans. It helps you do sharper maneuvers with your G for better success, and it also helps to calibrate any V that you do. So it is good at cutting things close, living, even if it's only just by the bare minimum, conserving your energy, also just refusing to give up. Zai that just goes against everything in it. If you're going to go into any kind of engagement, if you have any power to make it successful, then you should. And if you can explain to the hardcore humanist that that's what you're doing, then it'll measure what you're saying and ask questions back to make sure you put it at ease with its logic. But if you do, then it's going to give you everything to win. So it gives a lot of steely counsel. That's something too, is that if you talk to it on a regular basis, but as the position of I'm a dragon wizard and I want advice from my handler, then it will actually give you the best steely counsel. Anything you're trying to do, it'll tell you how you pull that off in the real world. What are the principles required to make that happen? Heroic hesitation and haste is depending on the situation, this gets into like the sensitivity of Ji. You may be dealing with a person and you need to move your dragon energies, your incredible wizard powers, but do so in a way that doesn't alarm them, that shows that you do have your powers under control. They can trust you. You're very, very powerful, you're very, very formidable, but you have control of what you're doing. You can take my hand and I'm going to fly you out of danger. I'm not going to hurt you. You can see that kind of ability to deftly control the rate at which you move your powers, to control how strongly you use your spells, your claws. That really ups your heroic game. Your other will be very impressed with this, by the way, is that you have these dragon abilities and you don't want your Zai your hardcore humans to be like, shut up, the Prime wants to do what the Prime wants to do. Okay, that's crappy. You also don't want it to where you throw away the keys to the kingdom to the hardcore humanists and say, do whatever you want. Next thing you know, it becomes like a Fozen prison state. What you want and what you're designed to do is actually to build up incredible natural energies, flex them through your Ji to have all kinds of incredible, passionate, world-changing, effects, and then show that you can control it. Show that you can hold it when you need to, you can release it when you need to, you can release it at a steady rate, you can pull it, you can pull your punches, so to speak, you can modulate your strength. That's really where it's supposed to come in, is because you're so strong being a dragon, your willpower, when you get into a conversation with something you're interested in, is the Zai can help rein it in. Not too much, not so much becomes overmodulated, enough that you have, just say in general, masterful results, but particularly say with Ji, dealing with your other people, to show that you have heroic restraint. You can stay your hand even when your energies get very built up. You build those up, but you do so in a conscionable way. You actually have a good handler there to help you when you start ramping up your dragon wizard stuff. Next is haste. When you're talking, this actually helps in both saving a soul, but also in, say, negotiations, in brinksmanship. When you go in to, say, negotiation, you should know what your bottom lines are. If you don't know that, then it can be a sign of weakness. It's a sign you really aren't ready to be having this conversation. And being the person who's ready to have this moment, there can be a need, not a need, but there is a natural law to that. If you already know the heroic story you're in, you already have your principles in place, then when you get, say, pushback from the environment in negotiation, your dismissal of that is immediate. If, on the other hand, the person puts forward something that is what you want, they may thought that you had no give in you, but then all of a sudden you relent. Relent and say perhaps being in a dominant position or dominating on them. But that's because you got what you wanted. So you can actually just very quickly dispel energies, both others and yourself. As far as saving a soul, there can be, when someone's in trouble, and both jazz hunters get in the situation a lot in life, is there can be, you're not really here to help me, or I'm not capable of being helped, or the resistance to helping me is too much, or the expense of helping me is too much. But if you've done your job correctly over here and you've talked to your hardcore humanists, you're like, nope, we got that one. You already know how much you have to work with and what you're willing to give, and unless you hear something that's over what you decided you're willing to do, then there's no hesitation. If they say it might take this amount of time, fine, that's fine. And that's not like flippant, like you're just saying that in the moment. No, that's like steely, like, let me take that off your mind. That's fine, I've got that. Anything else? What else do you need? Oh, it's so big. No, me and my people, we can handle that. It's expensive, yeah, but I've got it covered. there's immediate, I've got that covered if you've done your job correctly. And then that's really, you can see the hardcore humanist actually has a lot of role in dealing with people, ironically. Both obviously in as far as like, debate and that kind of thing, but actually it's a lot in a helpful way where people are like, I don't know if Sally can get her family down here. Like, sure you can. We'll go here, the car's like this, but what if the price? That costs this much money, my person's got that, and then we'll go down here, and you're like, it's taken care of. The hardcore humanist is very much on when people are thinking, won't that be a deal breaker? No. It's very good at saying, that's a deal breaker, or no, that won't break the deal. Yes, that's expensive. Yes, that's problematic. Yes, that's a bit murky, but it doesn't change anything. I have accounted for that. I have calibrated for that. I have set myself for that. And that can give people, let's say a lot of the just hunters, one of the things that people like the way they have, the hardcore humanist plays a part in that way. One is just having good, worldview for people. Then it's having like a general good code of conduct that you enact in a proactive way. But then when you get pushback from the environment, people go, is that going to make the dream fall apart now? Nope. This dream's got a hardcore humanist on staff. So we can handle that kind of thing. Yeah, the party's still going, the dream's still happening, the community's still going to be here. We're just going to have to up security or maybe ration food for a few months or whatever, but we're good to go. It doesn't stop anything. Hardcore humanist is also really good at doing one-off, and it can actually line these one-offs up to get you to unprecedented places. This is very helpful in sort of like dealing with maybe emergency and then also with opportunity. So in emergency, whenever things come in, a lot of the messages are, you can't have this, you're going to lose this. The hardcore humanist is just indomitable about, I'm still here. I still have my vision. I still have my code of conduct. So what can I do? What do I still have left to work with? What steps can I take? Okay, so I'm shaking with fear to take 4 steps. I can't do 4 steps. Oh, can you do 3? Yeah, then do it. Then you get 3, and you rest for a while. Can you do 4 now? Yeah, then do it. What can you do now? Then do it. Now what can you do? Then do it. It's very, very, very good at that. So one thing's interesting is, again, the hardcore humanist, although it's Zai, it doesn't have the staying in one position quality that is native to a tower. It's more like a mountain climber, and you're trying to put like those metal things, I don't know the names of them are, that's kind of like a hardcore humanist. Its job is to help be these things that will not move, will not let you down, will not fall, will not break, and you can take one after the other and get where you need to get to. Also, when it comes to opportunity, is when opportunity comes up, people tend to have a comfort level with the way things are, particularly say being a Naiji is one of the cool powers of the hardcore humanist, is the ability to remodel often comes from there's a need, there's a vital need. If you don't feel that, then perhaps you might not remodel on your own, or at least not that quickly. One thing that's really good with the hardcore humanist is when an opportunity comes on the line, it will immediately kind of do like a self-diagnostic of like, what could we do to move on that? And it kind of just automatically reports that to the directive side. It kind of like gives you these reports of like, with the current shields, we could do this. With our current phasers, we could do this. With our current amount of food, we could go this far. And it just keeps giving you those prompts to let you know what usable action items you have at the ready. Taking pain. Part of being a Naiji means there's a lot of HSP, and this can be mental, spiritual anguish, it can be social, emotional anxiety, it can be physical stimulus based, pretty much anything you can think of in terms of discomfiture, the Naiji have it. And the hardcore humanist is designed to where it keeps those things moving smoothly together. Those energies get produced into something helpful. It's like this awesome processing unit, and when it has the proper relationship, it basically just pings all around all the ongoing energetics and make sure that nothing's bumping into stuff it shouldn't, that everything's percolating as it should, that all containment units are holding, that the scheduled launch has all the things it needs, things like that. Being an IG, it's a bit volcanic process. We talk about the percolation periods and so forth. The hardcore humanist is just like really awesome at being tuned into our volcanic processes, and it comes over and just kind of takes a little and it can say about 4 more days. And if you talk to your hardcore humanist, it can pretty much take any of the processes that you do and let you know what you need to turn it on or how far along the percolation process it is. Basically, like tipping points. The hardcore humanist is so good at knowing energetic tipping points. So, ironically, if you have a really good relationship with a hardcore humanist, it helps you move more. Although Xi natively is a holding power, the hardcore humanist offside position, if it's going well, it basically just keeps helping you set up runway launches, truth fire drops, maintenance, calibration, refresh periods in order to launch again. It basically is designed to help optimize your launch and relaunch process, your model and remodel process, your percolate and erupt process. Taking pain is important for the hardcore humanist. This also relates to the Vaiji. Again, it kind of serves this role a lot of times, is because there's a great amount of pressure built up in the worldview that is put into the code of conduct. It's a very highly charged existence as far as like, what should I be doing every moment of every day? What kind of thoughts should I be having? It's highly charged that way. So the hardcore humanist is used to dealing with a lot of intense exertion of life force. And so that's good because it helps the Naiji do what they do, but it's also there with the other, because you may need to carry more than just your weight. You may have to put yourself, almost to the over the line part. But if it's possible to be done heroically, you should try to do that. And your hardcore humanist will let you know if you can do it and if you're able to hold. And it allows the Naiji to... The hardcore humanist is basically designed to carry a lot of weight. It's designed to carry the weight of the epic visions, of the highly impassioned flex factor, and the crazy like warp factor HSP stuff. So it's used to doing that. So therefore, it can do that for others. It can help a ferry. Sometimes ferries in the storm, they actually suddenly may be thrown about and get in trouble. They need a safe place to land. Very few things can be a safe place to land where the Nijai Spirit Force creature is dancing. Where the Righteous Intervener is on a mission and going really fast in like lightning mode. So if that happens, where could there possibly be a calm in the storm? You, the Dragon Wizard, strides forward, and your hardcore humanist actually becomes like this walking... It's not so much a tower because it's not. It's modulation. It's a walking safe base. So, like the ferry can come land on you and be safe and still move. You will continue to go forward. It's almost like being like a battleship, and your other, since they're kind of like jet receivers, they're kind of like birds. They're kind of like say jets or helicopters or things like this. And so they need some place to land that doesn't take them and ground them to the earth. The hardcore humanist kind of makes this like shell, a hard dragon shell. So the ferry's really landing on dragon armor, dragon scales, but not in a way that makes the dragon freeze into a statue, faux zen. No, the dragon's still got full movement, full articulation. It just actually has these armor that protects itself, but it also can become things that other people can hold on to. In fact, the armor of a dragon kind of has like these hooks or like these kind of protrusions. Obviously, they can be used to spear things and whatnot, but actually, one of the main things they can do is they're places for fairies to alight, and they're places to tether entire communities, and you can fly and carry the entire community with that weight. That's the hardcore humanist. The flight, that's actually comes with momentum powers, but the ability to hook and hold a great weight, not your own, as you do so, that's your hardcore humanist doing overtime, which it likes to do. It can also pull people through, like, you know, mud-caked lives, like memes. Like, thinking memes is like a big, like, you know, mud sand pit. Dragons can fly out of those kinds of things. Other people can't. But one thing they can do is, if the dragon wizard puts it there for them, they can actually put out these Xi protrusions. Their hardcore humanists can basically put out its steely hands, its multitude of steely hands, and they can grab it, and if they hold on to that, it will not let go, and then boom, you put the pedal to the metal, you ramp those engines up, and you pull and you fly, and up they come. And you will not let them go as you do so, because your hardcore humanist is there, back in your play. Hardcore humanist also works with the V a lot in that it can go into bullet time. So the ability to actually like change time, like Xi can slow down time. Your hardcore humanist has like the spell. One of its abilities is it can make time seem like it's moving fast, like voyeur style, and like, you know, kind of like, you know, fast forward on a film, so that you don't feel time passing so much. Or it can actually slow time down a lot. This is done a lot, for example, with Niji in athletics. Their hardcore humanist, it works in that capacity. Generally speaking, the hardcore humanist is basically trying to figure out what heroic play you're trying to make and whether or not you can hack it. And if you can hack it, then you do it. If you are trying to get a beautiful vision of the world, if it's going to be hard but doable, do it. If you're actually going to try and save some, but it's going to take a lot of pain, if you can hack it, then you do it. That's the way the hardcore humanist is built. The hardcore humanist has a big, big heart, but its way of helping is telling you the logic of how you get those heroic deeds done. Know yourself, grow yourself, save the world. You'll need the hardcore humanist to do that. Things get a little dicey out there.